going to, well, you're in for a treat tonight, I can tell you that. We're going to call, we have a public hearing first, which will take several minutes, as well as a regular school board meeting. So, like I say, you're in for a treat. I'm going to open the 2023 budget hearing at this time. Ms. Markowski, if you know, all board members are attendance and accounted for. Thank you. And Ms. Uriger, thank you so much for bringing us this delightful.
Thank you, Mr. President. Madam Superintendent, members of the board, tonight we are conducting a public hearing for our 2023 budget. I am available here at this moment where the public can ask questions about what has been advertised for your operations fund, which includes your bus replacement and CPF plan and the 2023 budget. Are there any questions I will entertain? I do want to share one bit of good news with the public and our board members. Yesterday I received from the state of Indiana, we are required to give 45% of our state revenues for our education fund, which we projected might have been a little bit lower than anticipated, and we exceed that requirement with our teachers at 47.8%. So we have met that requirement of 45% just in full-time teacher salaries. So I did want to state that out. Mr. President, hearing no questions from the public, I am recommending that the board conclude this public hearing this evening.
I move that we conclude the meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Me.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Okie dokie, here's the next great thing we got tonight for you. We are going to open the regular meeting at this time, and all members are present accounted for. If you'll please stand with me to say the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item would be the approval agenda this evening. I move that we approve the agenda as presented. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Do I have a, no, we don't need that. We just need a vote. Discussion? Everybody good with it? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining. Okay, at this point, no public comments? Sweet. And we'll move on into goal strategy and student achievement and budget. Ms. Huber, so nice to see you again.
Yes, sir. I'm pretty excited that we do have a crowd tonight to talk about the financial situation of our school district in totality. So this is the monthly reports that we do in cash to let you know that we do monitor our funding and expenditures and revenues throughout the year on a monthly basis with the board. So the first thing that is up is the major funds monitoring report. These are your 5 major funds that are involved in the budget. So we know that we paid very close attention to attaining goals that the board set from the 2020 budget, the 21 budget, the 22 budget, and therefore we'll carry forward to the 23 budget. So these are the major funds that actually run our district and other funds that help supplement our district to provide the services for the school function. So you will notice that on your education fund for August, we had an ending balance of $694 million. Last year you had $9.851 million. I always remind you that that contains a tax anticipation warrant that all that money last year was not yours. You had to pay that at the end of the year. So we have made significant strides in the $9.6 million in the education fund. It is absolutely necessary. The next is your operation fund. This is a tax-based fund. The education fund is where you get your state revenues from. Your operation fund is tax-based fund. You had a payment of $2.2 million last year at 6.9. That also had a tax anticipation warrant. And remember, we always talk about this fund and going in the hole just because of when you receive the revenue tax bill they pay in May and November, and all of your public entities that are taxing units receive those funds in those months. So June 30th to December 31st is when the school receives theirs. Next is your debt service of 5.4. Last year at 6.4. That's because that's going down. We're paying our payments right on time. And then pension debt, that's $590,000 cash payment, because remember, looking in the year that I pay, I don't love you ahead, I don't love you behind, we stay ahead with those payments. And finally, your rainy day fund is still maintaining a $3.5 million balance. Any questions on your major funds? Hearing none, Mr. President, may I proceed on to the monthly treasurer's report?
Please.
On the treasurer's report, the first 5 funds, the ones we just talked about, because if you pull those out, because it's important that we have monitored those and maintain that 10% cash balance that we have set to be financially responsible. But as you go through, I always point out there's certain funds that you are looking at and making sure that we're paying attention to them. One that I really want to talk about tonight is your food service fund. And that fund right there had been in $600,000 in the hole for quite some time, and we have made great strides and changes to attain a proper cash balance. The rules are you're allowed to keep a 3-month expenditure balance in that fund. Anything over and above that has to be reinvested in the cafeteria operation, okay? And so that should be equipment, things that the students will benefit at lunchtime for. We are fast approaching maintaining a good, solid financial foundation with this fund. And as I mentioned before, in January, we will start looking at reports that I will be developing specifically for food service so you can see what those average monthly 3-month rolling balances are. Of course, some months are higher or lower. Summertime, of course, you would expect your expenses to be a little bit lower, right? So we don't want to falsely assume that, our expenses have been just falling off. We have had to monitor this in such a way that we knew a solid way to figure out how much we have in excess of the 3 months, because we would like to invest those funds and required to back into the cafeteria program. So remember, we have had a long time in maintaining our buildings, hard time in a long time, and that's why we're aggressively tackling this, because these buildings definitely need these improvements without a doubt. So we will be utilizing the food service funds to enhance our cafeteria and dining area. And since we have these projects going on, we will make sure that we get those plans in, and this will offset that. This has to be reported to the state. At least today, we're having those conversations. The plan is sent to them, they approve the plan, and then we go in and enhance those cafeterias. So that was very important on the treasurer's report. Anything that you might see in the negative, ignore the yellow highlights. That's just a break in what I try to monitor all the years, just so I can see it easier. But any funds that are in the red, as you can see, are no longer being in the red. Most of them are reimbursables, and those are kept up on a monthly basis. So our grant team, Dr. Hartford and her team have worked very hard to make sure that those get monitored and handled, because they know that we couldn't survive without them. Because we linked in hard on them to handle that. If there's no I'll take questions, but if there is none, I'll proceed on.
Board. Please.
And finally, our board monitoring, our bond monitoring reports, because we've had bonds throughout the years. So again, not much has changed. We are doing improvements and enhancements to spin down our other bonds towards those sites that had bond work done before. And you will see that we have begun a lot of work on our 2 new elementaries. They just don't suddenly pop up. There's a lot of work getting there. So that's at the bottom. So you can see that we have been doing expenditures out of that fund. But the very top one, the 2016, we were able to get those gators, we're down to 88 cents, now that's just an interest bearing. So there's a process that we go through in closing those out. So we will begin working on that process. So 2017, which ends with a balance of $159,000. Your 2018 has $502,000 in there. And we've talked about that one quite a bit, square. And so the new principal there and I will be meeting to talk about some of the needs that are in that school, such as storage in between the school and the gymnasium for PE equipment, so that there's not a lot of, carrying and storing in the classrooms and that kind of thing. So we do have some ideas on what's going on there, and then he's given him time to get settled so he can give you an assessment of additional things that are in there. 2019 has $286,000. 2020 has the $9.6 million. And that one, is twofold. We did an energy savings, so we're finishing that product up as well. So that will be concluded, I think, by the end of this week. We have some adjustments on some lighting and Charles cover. 2021 classroom renovations, security paving. Those are things that we're currently working on, your tennis courts, those type of things. We're still at 24,047,000. So we're working really hard on getting that process through. Great team that is monitoring that, got a lot of confidence in that, and meet with Jeremy and I quite frequently on those projects. Move nicely through that. Are there any questions on
Questions for me? Everybody good? Perfect. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Moving right along, the consent agenda. Board, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Yes, Mr. President, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Any questions or comments? We've all read it, I know.
You've been practicing on getting it right.
What's that?
You've been practicing on getting that right.
Well, they're brothers. I mean, I can frequently confuse them. It's their eyes. They both have two. And I get confused. That used to go over a lot better in the clubs, but nonetheless. At any rate, we did do the first and the second. Any comments? We've already had plenty of those. And all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposing and abstaining. The next, Fair Katrina, would you be delightful enough to do our gifts to buildings for us?
Absolutely. For the month of September, we had free to Jeff High, various things, AFGROTC, girls volleyball team, and local club. Parkview Advisory Council had a camera donated, or money donated for purchasing a camera. Jennifer Lee donated clothes, and City of Jeff donated $100 to the football program. I would accept this gift to the $1,124.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Pickens. Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstaining. Okay, we're moving right along to action items. The first action item we have is the health insurance rates.
Board, it's that time of year where we meet as a committee, and our committee, as a reminder, is made up of both teachers and members of our administration, as well as a board member, and Ms. Perkins still agrees to stand in on behalf of the board for that committee. So we met with our insurance consultant in J Group to go over our rates and options. The committee has agreed to remain with Anthem as our health insurance provider. We also discussed our needs for our self-insurance fund and how to make sure that we meet those needs with claims, projected claims, our clinic, and also prescription costs, but also ensuring that we can build up a reserve in our insurance fund as well. In order to do that, we will see our premiums increase by an overall 9%. However, Greater Clark picks up 60% of that. So employees will see an increase varying whether they on their plan. So the self-only coverage will be an increase of $10.69 per pay, and family coverage will see an increase of $32.81 A, the superintendent's recommending approval of our health insurance with Anthem for the 2023 calendar year.
Thank you, Ms. Geldmaker. Or do I have a motion for the approval of the new health insurance rates for the 2023 school year?
Go for it, you do it.
I move that we approve the health insurance with Anthem for the calendar year.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Do we have any comments or questions?
Does this in any way affect your relationship with the wellness clinic?
That remains as is. That's a different contract, so that remains as is, yes.
Perfect, thank you.
I would like to thank Ms. Perkins for being on that committee. Did she just snarl?
She did, she's not.
Because I went to one meeting when she couldn't go. So I would like to thank her profusely.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
not painful, is it?
And Samantha, will tell you, it's just a necessary evil. So thank you very much for doing that. Okay, do we have a first and a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstaining. Next, April will move right down to the dental insurance. We're excited
Our
about
insurance
that.
committee also met to discuss our dental provider, and again, our committee agreed to remain with Anthem through calendar year 2023. This is a 12-month rate guarantee, so these rates will continue for the next calendar year. The increase is a 5% increase. However, because the rates obviously are much cheaper, the plans vary, so an employee may see a difference of 33 cents more per pay up to $2.67 per pay. Superintendent's recommending approval of our dental insurance rates for our next calendar year.
Or do I have a motion for the dental insurance rates for the next calendar year?
I move we approve those rates.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Nice smile. Any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining. We're moving right down to the vision insurance rates.
Yes, last type of insurance for today. Vision coverage will continue to be provided by Anthem as well. This renewal comes with a 4% increase, and those rate increases depend on the plan chosen. Increases will vary from 6 cents to 13 cents per pay. Superintendent's recommending approval of our vision rates for the next calendar year.
Lord, I move that we approve the vision rates for the next calendar year. Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Any questions or comments?
Before we vote, I just wanted to thank the people that serve on that committee, especially the teachers. Sometimes when you're trying to negotiate something that's going to cost money to an individual or that group of individuals, it can get pretty tense, but it wasn't. It was, everybody saw what we needed to do, and I thank you very much.
Okay, all those in favor of the vision rate increase signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstaining. Okay, the next item up, Ms. Geldmaker, our demands of the acceptance of real estate in the city with the city of Jeff, I believe.
Yes, board, this is actually conveying and accepting real estate. As you know, we're in the process of selling Bridgepoint Elementary. And in the process of that, we learned that part of Bridgepoint Elementary actually encroaches upon the park, Oakley Park, that is owned by the city of Jeffersonville. So we had to prepare new property lines to rectify this issue. Jeffersonville will convey a portion of their property of about 23,000 square feet. In turn, we will convey to Jeffersonville about 9,800 square feet in order to create a property line that allows Bridgepoint to be completely onto Greater Park's property so that we can finalize our sale of Bridgepoint. And also clean up that line so it runs in a straight line from Martha Avenue to Ewing Way. And in order to do that, I have two resolutions, one for Greater Park to accept the property from the city of Jeffersonville, and then a resolution for us to convey the 9,800 square feet to the city of Jeffersonville, and then also a deed.
Okay. Board, do I have a motion to approve the conveyance and acceptance of real estate with the city of Jeffersonville?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the conveyance and acceptance of real estate to the city of Jefferson.
Thank you, Ms. Fitzpatrick. Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Any questions or comments? I know this has been a long time coming, so we'll get that cleaned up. That's a good thing. Thank you very much, Ms. Cutler, for doing that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstaining. The next item up would be the commemoration of the Jeffersonville High School softball and football fields at Jeffersonville High School. Dr. Hartley.
Yes, Board. I would like to invite Mrs. Hall, the principal at Jeffersonville High School, up with our special guests, Coach Hatfield and Coach Ware. On behalf of the Jeffersonville High School administration and the athletic department, I would like to propose naming 2 of our newly remodeled playing fields after longtime Red Devil coaches. Mr. David Hatfield is a 40-year employee of Greater Clark Schools and coach at Jeffersonville High School. He has coached many sports, including football, gymnastics, and softball. He led the Red Devil gymnasts to their only state finals appearance in 1984. And the Red Devils finished as state runner-up. Coach Hatfield was at the helm of the softball program as it transitioned from slow pitch to modern-day fast pitch. He constructed the original field and recycled the old football field fence to enclose the softball diamond. He coached over 25 players who went on to compete at the collegiate level, with many pursuing a coaching career. Dave Hatfield is a respected and admired faculty member who has served longer than any other Red Devil employee. The impact Dave Hatfield has made on thousands of Jeff High students and athletes can never be measured. I am proposing that the new turf softball field be named the David K. Hatfield Softball Field.
Copy of that for my wife.
Sure. Mr. Bill Ware was a longtime football coach, teacher, and Greater Clark County Schools administrator, a 20-year head coach for the Red Devils. Coach Ware has over 100 career wins and 3 sectional championships, making him the most successful coach in Jeffersonville High School football history. Coach Ware has coached over 150 players who went on to compete at the collegiate level, with 2 of his former Red Devils playing professionally in the National Football League. Bill Ware's impact can be seen all over Southern Indiana, as a number of his former players have gone on to pursue coaching careers at various levels and are community leaders in their professional careers. Coach Ware has served as a mentor, teacher, father figure, and friend to thousands of Jeffersonville High School athletes. I am proposing that the football field at Jeffersonville High School be named the Bill Ware Football Field. Jeffersonville High School has a rich history of producing successful student athletes. The success of these individuals has been greatly impacted by 2 of the finest coaches in our school's history. I believe Mr. Dave Hatfield and Mr. Bill Ware are both well deserving of this recognition.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, what I'd like to do before we have a vote, and I don't think we're going to have a problem with that, but I would like to have each one of these gentlemen speak at the podium. I don't believe you I know we said a lot of wonderful things in that hall, but the experiences I know that they've created for kids on the fields really actually, to help them gain momentum academically. And so it's really a win-win thing that we have here. We have a lot of former players both. And so, Mr. Hatfield, if you'd like to go ahead and go to the podium and speak first, however long you'd like to. Remember now, there's no more death than we talked about. And then Mr. Ware, when he's done, if you would you want to speak?
I would like to say Mr. Lochner would love to be here tonight, and I'm honored to be able to fulfill in this position. He is recovering from surgery, but he wants us to share his congratulations to you.
When we started softball back in the late 70s, there was no money in the athletic budget whatsoever. Knew all the employed sets were started before we did. Doc Bolton and I, you know Doc Bolton?
Yes,
Through no expense from thing, we found a set of old basketball uniform shirts, and that was our shirts for the first couple of years. We went slow pitch for quite a while. By the way, Doc Bolton and I built the field. We had an old PE backstop, and as she said, we found some fence and put up an outfield fence, and off we went. I have a lot of the athletes here. That's totally surprised me. Anyway, you know Queen Elizabeth just died.
Nice segue.
You know, she was a queen over 7 decades. I have taught at Grand Clark County Schools over 7 decades. I started at Utica Elementary School, the old stone building up on the hill, back in 1962. Went to the old high school, taught there, went to California for 9 years, came back, TG Elementary, and Doc convinced me to come back to the high school. And that's when we started the softball program. We started in slow pitch. Cameron Bryder was on the slow pitch team. And we also had to transition to fast pitch because that's the way it went. Cameron was a slingshot pitcher. It's not like you see today. She had no instructions or anything of that type. We went to Nashville, Tennessee, played in a tournament there, and did quite well. Then we did also a Derby Festival type thing. And Leslie Singer, I think of her, we had a team come up from Nashville, Tennessee to play on our field where it is today. And this girl was about 6'2", and she threw about 60 miles an hour, something like that. And she threw a pitch inside, and Leslie jumped back and said, "Come on, Leslie, take it for the team." She said, "Get up here, Hatfield, you take it for the team." So Tiffany Smith, Kendra Gale back. Debbie Carroll is probably the most versatile player I've ever had. We played up in Scottsburg. Scottsburg was not very good. And she played in all 9 positions in one game. And she played 5 minutes. So I was, and I talked to another coach, I said, "This is what's going to happen." And she started out with shortstop as far as she normally played. And she literally worked her way around to every position, including pitcher and catcher. She went on to play up in Cincinnati. Mount St. Joseph, okay. And there was Cameron Bryder there. Cameron was the one that transitioned from fast pitch to slow pitch, so she's still around. And I see Becky. Becky was on one of their. Becky came in as a little bitty skinny freshman, along with some good athletes. And that was probably our best going. And then Pam. Well, Pam will not let me leave Jeffersonville High School. I'm going to stay here as long as I am. Anyway, my wife is here 57 years. She's a whiz. And she put out my 52-year-old daughter, who was very instrumental in bringing Tammy Hatfield Kennedy. It's going to be Hatfield soon. Kennedy's on the way. She's in Cancun, Mexico right now with GE. She retired from Ford and she's now with GE. And so she's down there, they're having a business meeting in Cancun, Mexico. My granddaughter, and I keep saying she's in the 3rd grade, she's in the 4th grade, but granddaughter is here. Kate, my grandson is practicing football tonight for Highlander Hills. And my daughter, my granddaughter, Kenneth, many of you know, gave her a job. She's coaching at Borden tonight. She's head coach at Charlestown, coach at Borden. And it's been a good ride for me, and I appreciate very much you naming Chad Clark is now the current coach with Becky, the head coach there. Thank you, Chad, for showing it. Did I miss anybody there? Okay, I'm done.
Thank you. Coach Ware.
And I had Jesse and Keith answer the place.
You know, the guy ad-libbed the whole thing, it was excellent. Nice job. I, on the other hand, I wrote a few things
We both
down.
went to Eastern Kentucky also.
Yes, we did. I wrote down some things because there were some people that I had to acknowledge. This is the only time that I'm going to speak publicly proudly about this, and by the way, it's the greatest tribute I've had in my entire life. And I'm humbled and honored to have received this with such distinction. So I felt that it's very important to bring in the people that I think make the difference and share this with me. First, 1981, Vic Hennigan, Mr. Hennigan, was our principal, and he hired me as a 27-year-old man as a head coach. And I'm not so sure I was ready to take on that responsibility at a Jeffersonville High School, but I worked hard. And he had his patience and guidance and was a sounding board, and I thank him. I love that man, love him today. We had our assistant coaches, and I was coach for, my tenure was 19 years. And out of 19 years, I had 42 assistant coaches. 12 of those were former players. Bobby Schaefer was one of them. His wife, but Bobby was one of them. They had 12 of them. But when I hired a coach, I took that as a major responsibility. You want to get the best people you can. They're with your kids. They're going to be handling and making decisions and deal with the contact. I've really got the best people I could find. Knowing football was secondary. We could teach that. And I had some great ones. The one that I would like to acknowledge now was with me 18 out of the 19 years. His name is Greg Rose. He was an English teacher at Jeffersonville High School. And he was, my right-hand man. He was my defensive coordinator. And we were brothers and brothers now. Some other people that weren't coaches, Jane Kendall. Jane Kendall was in my time there, was the athletic trainer. And whether a kid was going to play in the game or not, as a player, that was her choice. That was her decision. And she did it very well. And as coaching, particularly in football and sports with a lot of players, you can really, pay attention to them, their attitude and their disposition. Some days they come out and they're on fire, they come out another day and it looks, like a dog died. You don't know. But sometimes when you see a kid and he's going in the wrong direction, you better find out what's going on. And Jane Kendall was the person, the trainer, was the person that I could always find out. And the reason for that is that those guys are going to tell her things, share things with her, because she was so open to them that wouldn't possibly go to one of the other coaches. So I wanted to recognize her. Pat Hennigan, who's recently deceased, and Tom Kendall. We were playing football at Jeffersonville High School for over 100 years. When I started in 1981, we weren't even 500 at that point. But I'll tell you this, Pat Hennigan has every statistic from the beginning of the football we played, and had it up to the point of him being deceased. I'm not sure, I hope it's being tallied. In fact, he would print out a book. If you ever get a chance to get one, he'd print out a little copy of all the statistics, and they compare 2022 to last year, to the history of football, if you like football, it was amazing. So I wanted to recognize them. A group of people, I had a booster club every year, and they were parents. And no one else but people that got involved with the parents. And the whole point of that is I wanted to get things that we could get for our players that we couldn't get, in our budget. And one was we took long road trips. And I'm telling you, you get the school would give you a sack lunch. Remember those days? Give you a sack lunch, you'd have an apple, a sandwich, and a bag of chips in it. That gets it out of the parking lot, but it's not going to go when you're bringing a kid back at 2 o'clock in the morning. Somebody that, a big kid. And so I wanted to for another reasons, for the fellowship. We would find places, it had to be a smorgasbord type thing, but we would find that at the end of the game, win, lose, or draw, and we'd come back and we would go there, and we'd say a team prayer going in, and I talked to them about how, this is the time you want to show your class, you want to show, and go in there, not get out of hand, but act like a college team. And we did that. And the fellowship that grew from that over the years, and I mean, they would come in and not who we're playing first, but where we're going to eat first. They really enjoyed that. We took them to a Tunnel Mill camp. That's a Boy Scout camp in Charleston. And after a scrimmage or something, but again, to develop that fellowship, we would go to Tunnel Mill. And it would get to be that at Tunnel Mill, we would do activities that we'd have feed them, then we'd go out and we'd have a campfire. They would do skits. And I mean, they were funny. They were absolutely, each class, sophomores, seniors had to do their own skit. And they were hilarious, but they were good. And then the whole prime part of it came when our seniors gave their speech. Each senior had to give a speech. And I can tell you this, at the end of that, after hearing their speeches, I can almost predict what kind of season we're going to have. And if all they talked about is I, me, we're in trouble. But if they talked about us, we, together, I started looking at my chops because I knew we were going to have a really good team. And T-shirts, we give T-shirts for everything. The kid makes the honor, we got a T-shirt. The kid squats 300 pounds, that's a T-shirt. And they're a simple thing, but it means a lot to the kids, at least back then. It meant a whole lot to them. But when I looked at recruiting coaches, I wanted to get guys that knew what time involvement it took. It was a whole year deal. And I mean, you play in so many weeks, but you've got conditioning, you've got grade checks, you've got so many things you have to do. And these guys that I hired did an excellent job with it. And the downside of that is it does take away family time. It really, it takes a special person and a special time in his life that can commit that kind of time and energy to it. Energy in any sport. You can go as high and as low as you can possibly get in an hour. And then you have the kids and dealing with them, and it's very emotional and challenging. But when I looked at our players, and I told them that you're the best players in America, I told our coaches that. And to me, they were. And we had the most diversity in our program, and I would say that just about any team in Indiana. We had every walk of life. You know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. Because, that's where we've got our kids would have to learn to respect each other for who they are and the differences between us. And when you start, doing things like having the meals, going to the camps, those kind of things, they start to join each other. And when they would come together, and it was not an easy task, but when those teams came together, they were awesome. They played together. They were like family. They spent in a short season, you spend almost as much time with them, with each other, than they do with their family. So that was an important aspect for us, and it was kind of the culture that we had at the time. And another person that helped us a lot was a welding class at Jeff High. And Larry Hensley started it. You know, there was no weights in the program. In 1981, they had a universal, but it, you know, wasn't effective for an entire team. And weight room equipment, you know, Olympic weight is very expensive. But we would have every booster club fundraiser and put some into it. But yet then we had the welding department make our benches and our squats and our incline racks, and you know, they apparatus on the field. We had parallel bars and running ropes, and they made that. So Larry Hensley and that program, and that still that same generosity and helping the school continues. The welding program is excellent, the best ever. And I wanted to thank him for that. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about our pride culture and how that we wanted to institute kids to feel good about themselves. So, you know, pride. Again, pride yourself. Pride in what you're doing. Pride in your school. Pride in your team. Pride in your community. And you talk about those things. And it's there. You know, when I came in, the first thing, when I walked on the Jeffersonville football field, there was a memorial to Tony Winberg. This kid played through sports, was an outstanding student, and man, everybody cared about him. Everybody liked him. When I in Evansville got in a plane crash with the basketball team, and they built a memorial for him. And you know, when we played, and we played like Hatfield, they were in the 80s, they were pretty much dominated the state championship. We played them every year. And we played them, and we played teams like North Central that come down from Indianapolis. And we would stop, and on Monday we talk about the culture of our community, the culture of football in this community, where it's going to go and how much more we've got to go. And we'd go out on the field that night and touch, everybody individually would touch that statue. And I'm telling you that, you know, that's what it's about. And that's the kind of effort you want to put in with making a team. And you got to have the right kids to do it. And at Jeff, you have the right kids that want that and do that. So the people that made this possible, that made this night here one of the most special that I can possibly ever remember, Pam Hall. Pam Hall is the principal at Jeffersonville High School. And I knew Pam, she was in high school, but by the time I knew it professionally, I was at that time assistant principal at Parkview, and Pam was a faculty member. And she had just a tremendous teacher. She was an outstanding teacher. But more importantly, she had an uncanny ability to communicate. And not just with the kids, they adored her. In fact, she ended up being the dean there for a while, you know, and then her administration wrote. But she was the kind of can do, can I help, get involved, take part of, not sit back and watch things happen, but get involved. We started 1 year, and for whatever reason, we didn't have an athletic director. Now, an athletic director in the high school, that's a full-time job. In the middle school, you know, it's just as tough, not as many games or as teams, but you have to still have a fall schedule, winter schedule, spring schedule, and it takes a lot of work. You get buses, coaches lined up, referees lined up where it's going to be, and a lot of timing. Well, we had done. We were in the first week of school, and we realized we had done. We talked, and who do you think is capable of doing that at this time? And we agreed it's Pam. And we asked her without batting an eye, not one iota of hesitation. She said, "I'll do it." And not only that, 3 days later, she had the fall sports schedule, and there was not a glitch in it. There's not a problem. And the rest of the year was that way. That's the kind of work intensity this lady has. And it doesn't surprise me that she's at Jeffersonville High School in a very challenging, turbulent time to be an administrator, trying to keep up with the different schedules and all that goes into play there. And she's done an excellent job. Jeffersonville High School is lucky to have her leadership and her there. Mark Loeffler, our superintendent, another guy, came in at a rough time, And I just like his leadership style. It's steady, it's not outrageous, it's not aggressive, it's steady, it's thoughtful, and he's done a good job. I think he's the best superintendent. I would say in my tenure here, that I think he was the best superintendent that we've had, and I thank him. And the last is the school board. I don't think anybody knows that. I'm just looking at your agenda, how many different roads you travel each meeting, and how much information you must have going on to come up with right decisions. What a job. What a job. But like your president, Mr. Buckwalter, I've known for a while, that man does not short arm anything. Everything he does in life, he goes after it. He gives every ounce of ability he's got for it, and you are all in that mode. So, no further ado, hope I didn't talk you to sleep. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach Ware, Coach Hatfield, we appreciate it. More than you can imagine. I would like to, at this point, move that we approve the renaming of the fields as presented. Could I please have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Now I want to say something. Being a football coach's son for years, it was hard because I think regardless of football or softball or whatever, I think we want to thank the wives who basically sacrificed the husband and the sons and daughters who basically sacrificed the father so that their dad or their husband could do the work that they felt like needed to be done. And it was not just athletics. Like I say, it has a lot to do with academics. It ties kids back into school. And I'm all about that. So to you both, great work. Thank you so much for what you've done for Greater Clark and Jeffersonville High School. I'm sorry, anybody else?
I'm interested in the Tony Winburn Memorial. Where is that now? Is it still Memorial Park?
No, it was at the football field. You walk out by the flagpole.
Is it Jeff's football field?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Didn't know that.
Any other questions?
Yeah, one more thing.
Cool.
Coach had alluded to these T-shirts that every player that ever walked through the locker room had wore. He left out that you had to earn them. It wasn't just lifting, 300 pounds, through a squat. It was also a combination of all of this. It was the athletic test that everybody had to take. Everything that you wore was earned. So, Coach, you earned it. Thank you.
You're welcome. You got a lot of shirts, didn't you?
Yeah.
Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor of the renaming of the JHS softball football field, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstaining? Okay, the next would be the Kenneth Wood Consulting Agreement. That would be Dr. Harkins, I believe.
Yes, thank you. Kenneth Woods will be providing 11 writing workshops for high-ability elementary students in grades 3 through 5. He is an IU graduate with a BS in biology and an AS in chemistry. He incorporates his love for science and poetry in his workshops. He will focus on word choice and using literary techniques effectively to help students writing their own poetry that will tie into a public art exhibit at the Melco Arts Center. The total cost for all of the workshops is $2,145. The cost will be paid out of the Indiana Arts Commission grant.
Okay, do I have a motion for the approval of the Kenneth Wood Consulting Agreement?
Mr. President, I move we accept the Kenneth Wood Consulting Agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Any questions or comments for Dr. Hartledge? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstaining. The next item would be the Clark County Multi-Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Good evening.
Mr. Sherman, how are you?
Very good. I'm glad I didn't have to go after those guys. Little space between me and this.
There you go.
I played a lot of football and coached my time, so definitely have a lot of respect. My wife coached and played basketball a lot of our life, so I know how much sacrifice goes into both the athletes and the coaches, so thank you guys for that. So the multi-hazard mitigation plan it serves as a guide for the county's assessment of hazards, vulnerabilities, and risk, and actively incorporates the participation of a wide range of stakeholders and the public in the planning process. This plan aids the county, cities, and towns in preventing, protecting against, responding to, and recovering from disasters that may threaten the community's economic, social, and environmental well-being. The plan documents historical disasters, assesses probabilistic disasters through HAZAS, image, and geographic information systems analysis, and addresses specific strategies to mitigate the potential impacts of these disasters. The Clark County Emergency Planning Team and the Polis Center at Indianapolis University, Purdue University, Indianapolis, originally developed the Clark County MHMP approved in 2016. The multi-hazard mitigation plan is not a static document, but must be updated over time to reflect shifting conditions. The 2022 multi-hazard mitigation update represents a collaborative effort to ensure that the planning document accurately reflects the changes within the community and addresses each jurisdiction's unique needs. So part of this also allows us to apply for grants that are contingent on us, the county, having this. I know that Henryville is working to build a tornado shelter and using federal funds for that. So us opting in opens those doors. I know Mr. Jones has been on the planning through that too and has some information if you have any additional questions, but I recommend that we opt into the multi-hazard mitigation plan for Clark County.
Well, do I have a motion for the resolution of the Clark County Multi-Hazard Mitigation Plan adoption? Be a part of it. Ms. Hutchinson? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Any questions or comments from Mr. Sharman? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining. Okay, the next will be the addendum to the Perfections Facility Maintenance Service Agreement. Ms. Hewiger, good to see you again.
Good to see you. Thank you again. I'll be bringing them to rear, so I'll try to keep everybody. As we know economically what's going on in the nation, and we're facing a lot of things with price increases and demands on quite a bit of material, fuel. Remember how we escalated $5 or something like that now. In 21, we engaged with our facility management team known as Perfection, and part of their process and their charge was to ensure Greater Clark County cost savings is measured. And by doing that, they do take over our lawn and landscape services, our cleaning, our HVAC, which is massive. If you just kind of picture one school at a time, you're talking about the massiveness with that. They were guaranteed to save us $350,000 with that process. They guaranteed that to us. They had far exceeded that. Just in one thing was the supplies at that time. They purchased $500,000 that we didn't pay for. That doesn't include all of the energy savings by the preventive maintenance they're doing, filtration changes, and those kind of things. So we've had to have a very serious discussion about the economic impact, because I always tell people, I don't need you for the moment, I need you for hours, so we need to make sure that everybody still stays on the line and toes that line to continue to guarantee us savings. So that is the main purpose of coming to the board tonight. We did see a slight increase in supply needs that are related to just the industry standard for our cleaning needs that we do have to increase and pass on to the school district. In addition, for lawn maintenance, of course, the fuel, what it takes to mow the thousands of acres that we have in the district. We found that to be fair. During our budget presentation, we have talked about how we're going to have to look at the impact of fuel to our staff and those that are utilizing automobiles, those companies that are coming into work for us. But moreover, because of our 5-year capital plan, we know that we have schools that the reason we are having to build new new elementary schools is without a doubt the fact that these elementary schools are being in such need of replacements. And we run a huge risk because it'll take about 18 months to 2 years to build these schools, and that's just how long it usually takes to build them. And the risk far outweighs what funds we do have in case we have to have full replacement. Those kind of parts, those kind of things that come along. So, in meeting with the powers that be at Perfection, they have agreed with a monthly service plan to amend their contract to take full responsibility for that. They will continue the preventative maintenance, but if there's needs within that, those schools, they will take that on. Because they believe in the partnership, and they believe in the charge of making and improving the district, because again, the mission is to make sure those ones stay in the process. So overall, the increase to the contract is about 2.6%. We thought that was very fair considering the inflation rate, gas rates. So I am humbly coming to the board to request that you do approve this addendum. We'll be taking care of the following schools: Jonathan Jennings, Thomas Jefferson, Wilson, Pleasant Ridge, those are the four that are currently handling in the two elementaries that are coming. And finally, we can't forget about Harvard. We're really going to take care of that school too. The next plan is that's been presented to you in a workshop. And it does hit a certain time frame. So for the next 2 years, so it takes 2 years to build school buildings, we will put that pressure directly right on into the hands of the profession, if the board so desires to approach it that way. Financially, I recommend it to be that way. Therefore, I come to the board, highly recommend this adjustment, and then
Board, do I have a motion for the approval of the addendum to the Perfections Facility Maintenance Service Agreement?
Mr. President, I move to approve the addendum to the Perfection Facility Maintenance Service Agreement.
Thanks. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any questions or comments?
I have a couple. You said that the cost savings far outweigh, what they promised. Could you provide the board, not like right this second, but in the future with that breakdown?
absolutely.
Then now, I would love to see that.
Absolutely.
Also, I know that, with everything we've struggled keeping custodians and other really important people in buildings. Have we done surveys either to admin or to teachers to let us know like how that's going? Because I know there are a lot of frustrations.
So I'll address that in 2 ways. The first way is we had a discussion even with our teachers today about even internally providing staff work to staff the school district and other businesses outside even Perfection, what we're seeing in the industry, and they too, are recruiting. They have their top management team, and we have in-house management and customer service. I think we really need to pay attention to what that is, because any other outsourced team that I have used before in my lifetime, they do not have in-house customer services we have. Plus, they don't provide the standards and the level, and those meet with those principals on a regular basis. Our directors also give us feedback on those. Chris is the resident inside our building and does do building visits. Jeremy is in with that, so we're putting in all forces as we can. They have 2 people they're looking to hire now. So it's a constant recruiting thing that we have to do. Also financially in my world, I have, done things to, retain folks. And sometimes it's just not money. And there's this many jobs and not that many bodies. So we're really started competing with surrounding districts, surrounding huge buildings that are being cleaned up right now, 62, you imagine, those are the people that we're competing for our bus drivers. I mean, we have that full attention on being more aggressive in that dollar figure, but we're really seeing that there's just not enough people to fill those positions. Is there anything I have forgotten with that, Mr. Gunther?
I can add one thing. We did send out a survey to the staff.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I would like to see that, those results.
Yeah, no problem at all. We should, I think they've had 380.
I think last time we checked, it's still open. It's going to be open through the end of this week, and we'll collect the results over the fall.
But I think 380.
We started putting it all together.
We did send it to the staff of each of the buildings, and so once we have those collected and compiled, we'll share those with you.
Appreciate that, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor of the approving the addendum to the Perfection Facility Maintenance Service Agreement, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And abstaining. Okay, next item with the architecture agreement amendments between the Greater Clark County Schools and Jamie Lake and surplus duty for services for new elementary schools.
Okay, so we have embarked on the process of building 2 beautiful elementary schools. So when we headed into the process, we recruited Jamie Lake and Lancer plus BD architecture firms to help this district take on this massive process. And in that, when we engaged with them, if you recall, I have boasted about the rate the architect firm has landed on, which is way less than architect firms that I have experienced. So that's at 5.75%. Okay. Going in prior to, even, and this was all prior to bonding, prior to having the plans, prior to, because we had to have them on board at that time, so we start telling them our needs, our ideas. Where do we want these? Can it fit here? Can we do this here? What is that process? Educate us on what we need to do to get to the end result of producing the right size elementary school. So at that time, that contract came in with an estimated value of $62 million, but standing firm on the set percentage. As we walked through that whole process and did tours of the buildings, our team, our directors, our principals, our teachers are collaborating and talking, and the architect firms have met with them diligently and with the administrative team, guiding them, what the enrollment's going to look like and what our expectations are. So we have come to the conclusion with the fact that there is also such a rate increase on building materials, we know this, that these elementaries are going to cost about $100 million. Negotiating with J. Lake Architect Lancer Beebe, they decided that they would cap it not to exceed $84 million, just because and this is just the $100 million is an estimate. Our next step is to advertise for a construction management team. They will be responsible for working with the architects, what is needed for the building, and they do the bids. Okay, so that's when the rubber meets the road. We're going to know those things. So Jamie and Mark Beatty, who's been working with the team on the designs, felt that it was in the best interest of the district that we do put a cap on it. Because the wood had gone up and then it comes down, and the fuel goes up and it comes down. There's no need to have all of that in the price for their services. Do you understand what I'm saying? So we entered at $62 million. Now we know exactly, they know exactly what our expectations are in these 2 buildings. Stay at the same rate and capping it at $84 million. It's my recommendation to the board that they approve this architect amendment for the percentage rate to remain the same. You capped it at the $84 million to
motion for the approval of the architectural agreement amendment between Greater Clark and Jamie Lake / Lancer plus BB for services for the 2 elementary schools.
I move that we accept that.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Any questions, comments?
So, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this. Jamie Lake and Lansing must be bill a percentage of the total project.
Correct.
So 2 years ago, before everything, the project was this amount and their percentage was this amount. But now it's bigger because everything's more expensive.
Well, it's more than just that. I mean, yeah, we know the prices have increased, but at the time that we engaged with them, we had not, as a team, they had to guide us through all the things that we had to think about. We, as a team, had not come up with the total number of sections of what we needed in this building, and total versus total number of sections in this building, and what are we looking at? And so, once they got through what we had the expectation administratively, our directors and principals, now they know what the final product should be. So that estimate is based on what now our final product. At the beginning of the engagement of that, we knew roughly how much we thought we wanted, but after explaining the enrollment need, the types of classrooms that we need in there for special ed, pre-K, so they have fit this all into their design and have been able to give us an estimated price of what that is, what that should be.
Okay.
So that's what the difference is, more than just price increases and that kind of thing.
Okay.
But it's,
So
because
it's
now we have a
more
product, we know what the product is going in.
Okay,
We knew we wanted 2 elementaries.
right.
We knew, okay, can we spend about this much? Well, based on what we came back with what our need is to meet for those locations, this is the estimated price that we have come up with, which is $100 million. We didn't know that at that time. So now we're going to cap that, so that way it doesn't, price go up to $200 million, but we're talking about a different story now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
And I'm remembering back like when the design bid build process, because I'm seeing on here like design, RFP phase, construction documents, bidding, all of that, contract administration, that takes a lot of time. Is this going to be a case where like they design it, they bid it, and then whoever wins the bid goes it for that amount of money?
So how this works is that all of the criteria of what is needed within these 2 buildings will be produced out for a CMC, a construction management team. So right now, what's going on is you have your classroom ads, your tennis courts, your classroom ads. Core is the one that oversees that project. They then, it's time for concrete, it's time for electrical or whatever. They then go out and they prepare those bids, of course, under the direction of Jamie and Mark. With them, go out and produce those bid documents, and they handle all of the selection process, all the bid documents, all of the advertising, and all of those things. So the construction management team will do that. Totally different kind of concept than a design build. They design, put all the specs together to meet what has to be done for the owner. Jamie Lake, Mark Beatty represents the owner and says, this is what they want. We want purple curtains, fine, that's what they want. They're gonna make sure that the construction managers are gonna be, doing purple curtains. Do you know what I mean?
Thank you. How much is Dr. Sharman involved in this?
Oh my gosh. Quite a bit.
I just want to make sure we're getting our money's worth for him.
Yes. You know what is beneficial with Dr. Shireman is that he does meet with the principals frequently of these 4 schools that are directly impacted, and having the educational background based on need and requirements for pre-K, kindergarten. He meets with our special ed directors, pre-K directors, so he can incorporate that interpretation, and he translates maybe when they are collaborating and talking about the actual drawings, what it really means, the functionality within the school, so then he delivers it back to the architects and to those who are producing that information. At the same token, then he then reaches out to those that are providing that documentation, can translate it to the educator. You know, they're the nurturer, hey, if the bolt's up there, the bolt's up there. I just need to be able to get these kids to the restroom on time. You understand? So his translation between the two has been working pretty seamlessly. Would you say, Jeremy, pretty seamlessly?
Me and Jamie had a really good working relationship. I feel like that the principals that we're working with have come to us with very specific needs. We laid down out for Jamie and his team. They designed the buildings around our specific needs. Once they came back with their first draft, we went back to the principals, talked through a few things as far as functionality of the building. Once we realized there were some components that probably weren't going to be as useful for our current dynamics, we went back to the design team. They made some adjustments, and I feel like we've landed on a pretty good product at this point. I'm really convinced that these two new elementaries are going to be great buildings. I am meeting with each of the communities over the next couple of weeks to start that conversation with the schools, and then me and Ms. Wesley, or Dr. Wesley, are going to hold a community meeting at each of at Charlestown Middle and River Valley Middle sometime in late October, early November, to talk to communities through what these buildings are. So as far as the paring down what our needs are, what the functionality of the buildings are, been pretty involved with the design team on that. Absolutely.
Not to mention, right now, you know that you have, at least 3-4 active construction projects going on, so he has to monitor that as well. We all pitch in when we can. I mean, all of us are attending, talking about, it's always about the $90, so when there's budget discussions, reductions, and whatever we need to do to get the highest quality product. I step in, but Jeremy is monitoring those kind of things, which means that when these two kick off, he will be monitoring that process as well. He's the boots on the ground that goes to those buildings to make sure that, I have to pay at a certain rate of these projects. So they have to be at a certain rate at a certain time. If they're not, then we're talking to bond council, right? So I have to drag that through with a clear understanding that product delay is always there. So Jeremy's always constantly saying, okay, we're at this point, or we're at this point, we're at this point. And probably not a day that we don't talk to each other. I mean, if it's not a day that we don't talk to each other through this process, he then is out on managing that. So the expectation level from him is more than just the translation between architect and educator. It's also managing those projects.
Thank you so much. He also has to deal with school board members who want answers right away.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Not to mention any names, but
Right.
I thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, you're welcome. I certainly apologize for the delay yesterday, but I was at that safety conference, and once I got through in the evening, I was able to get your
But that was
information.
riveting.
You called it, riveting. Okay, board, all those in favor of the approval of the architectural agreement amendment between Greater Clark County Schools, Jamie Lake / Lancaster plus Beebe for services for the new elementary school, signify by saying aye, please. Aye. Opposed or abstaining? The next item up will be the approval of general obligation bond.
This is going to be a tag team effort. What I want to start off saying is that this is a traditional presentation that we always do with the request of general obligation. Let me tell you what the intent of this obligation bond is. And then we, of course, will lean on your favorite, Matt Schumacher from Steeple, who will talk about the financial status of borrowing these funds and maintaining the commitment and promise of $1.10. He'll show all of the debt net. But the intention of this general obligation bond are related to education buildings and related facilities, including but not limited to equipment, plumbing, HVAC, roofing, paving, building improvements, the tenant real estate, excavation, technology, preparation of any real estate currently owned by the school corporation. As you know, I have said every single meeting, budget, and I said it earlier, these buildings have not been maintained for many years. We cannot ignore them, we've come too far, and we want to continue to forge forward. So we're asking for a 19.9, and I'll get more in the detail of that, but I want to turn it over to Mr. Schumacher to go through his presentation a little bit.
Good evening, Matt Shoemaker with Steve Cole. Yes, thank you. Great to be here and see you all again. I know you guys have seen my presentations a million times, so I will go through fairly quickly, but please do stop me if you have any questions or comments on any of my slides. Okay, so first, let's look at where you guys are today. This is a graph depicting all of the obligations currently outstanding that are paid out of your debt service fund, stacked on top of each other to show the annual payment beginning in 2021, moving last year through 2041, which is currently your last payment. You can see that there was an increase from 2021 to 2022 in terms of the payment. But if we look at what your actual tax rate has done on the next slide, there was no increase to the tax rate. I know the administration and the school board has stated many times over the last few years that the goal is $1.10. We have successfully hit that in 2021 and 2022. Currently, as you stand here today, there is flexibility. There's room in the tax rate beginning as early as next year. That is no coincidence. That is part of the plan that we've been working on for the last several years with Laura and Mark and their team to set you up. The idea is to address your current needs, but set you up to be able to address future needs without impacting that tax rate. That's exactly what this graph is showing you on this page. Looking at the proposed project, we're looking at a $19.9 million general obligation bond. The borrowing would occur in 2022. This shows currently what we're looking at for the proposed payback. Nothing is set in stone at this point. This is kind of just the first take. You can see there would be another increase in payments from 2022 to 2023, but much like you saw from 2021 to 2022, we're solving for a tax rate. We have seen significant assessed value growth in Greater Clark schools over the last several years. We're seeing that again for pay 2023. 2022 grew a little over 11%. 2023 grew over 18%, which I believe is the largest on record for the school corporation, at least in recent memory. We would pay this back over the course of 8 years, with the largest payment being in 2023. But as we look at the updated page on your projected total tax rate, you're going to hit $1.10 again in 2023. But still leave room beginning as early as 2024. There may be additional needs in the future. So again, let's take care of the needs today, set you up for flexibility in the future. We don't want to handcuff you and take up your tax rate for a prolonged period of time with the number of buildings that the school corporation has. We know there will be potentially additional needs in the future. So that's what this accomplishes with this general obligation bond borrowing. Looking at the proposed parameters that you will see in a future resolution, if I can get this to go. Okay. Par amount of the bonds, $19.9 million. That is a maximum number. You cannot borrow any more than that number. We're estimating cost of issuance at $400,000. That's a very conservative number, but this page always paints the worst case parameters. I talked about that in the past. That would leave proceeds available for the project. The hard and soft cost of the project of $19,500,000. We are estimating current interest rates around 4%. We talked about this In the past, we were looking at this last year, that rate was well under 2%. Now we're going to be somewhere around 4% as we stand here today. Rates have risen significantly this year. They continue to rise. There doesn't necessarily seem to be an end in sight, so there will be our work in getting this ready as quickly as possible to make sure that we can take as much interest rate risk off the table. Obviously, the legal process has to play out, but we will be ready to go once all of this, if approved, is ready to go. Estimated interest expense, $2,909,533. The estimated maximum tax rate impact, I know I've talked about this in the past. I've said this is tax rate neutral. Now your resolution is saying there's going to be a 13% impact. It does not take into account your other bonds paying off. So as we're replacing some of that debt, seeing the assessed value growth, what the taxpayers will see on their tax bill is going to be the $1.10 for the school corporation's tax rate. The 13 cents is purely a statutory formula. It takes the largest payment you're going to have in 1 year, divided by your assessed value, doesn't look at the debt that we're replacing. So the net impact is going to be zero. The tax rate will be $1.10. That's it. Questions for me? Not getting this ready. Thank you all.
No, we're good. Board, do I have a motion for the approval of the general obligations bond resolution?
Oh, really?
You got
Slow recommendation there?
What's that?
Gotta take some money
I didn't think
I thought we were
from
square on.
approving that beautiful presentation.
No, I did my homework right ahead.
Okay, then you would know that there's more to the presentation.
I know there's more to that.
You're just trying to
And I know the end of it. Let's be clear.
All right, we're gonna get clear here.
All right,
Due to the
I know.
continued needs of our buildings and the emergency, I find that I must come to the board to request an opportunity to do a general obligation bond not to exceed $19,900,000. We request this bond to cover plumbing issues, sewer failures, equipment, HVAC, roofing, paving, excavating, site preparation, and tennis building. Our operations fund cannot handle these necessary repairs by appropriation nor by cash. As I explained in the 23 budget presentation, I prepared the debt service fund to handle the next bonded projects and this general obligation request. Therefore, no impact on the commitment of $1.10. A general obligation bond is received into our cash fund balances and distributed on our claim dockets. So you'll see those expenses every time we issue checks. We will be reimbursing us for some of the expenses that we haven't taken on until we receive these funds. See if I can skip through these. Tonight, this is what you will be approving, the preliminary of this. We are approving resolution to reimburse expenditures to the district. As with every bond issue, we come to the board and pass this resolution in the event expenses are incurred by the district and can be reimbursed. The second resolution is approve the bond resolution. This resolution allows the CFO to proceed with the general obligation bond with a hearing and a published notice to taxpayers and authorizes additional appropriations to authorize expenditures for the needs of the bond. So it is my recommendation that the board of trustees approve these two resolutions.
Board, do I have a motion for the approval of the general obligations of resolution 2022?
Mr. President, I recommend that we approve the general obligation bond resolutions.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Any comments, questions?
In 3 sentences or less.
Gotcha. 15 million is a lot to explain.
Well, I know, but this is just my stupidity. This is a general obligation bond.
Right.
How is that different from a tax anticipation loan?
Well, tax anticipation warrants are generally issued if taxpayer monies are going to be distributed to the school on the schedule that it should be, which is June to December. I've experienced that through COVID when the governor said, oh, you don't pay the taxes, and therefore it's not due to the county until July. All of our payments and debt is due June 30th, right? So we get the money, the taxpayer money in, and then we pay it out. If I don't have that cash coming in, I have to go get a warrant.
And that's from the state.
No, yes, I mean, yes, we go through, we get the money, but the state called that, we have the option to get tax anticipation warrants when we feel the need to. This last time the governor said not to pay taxes until July, he made that call at that time due to COVID. But we as a school district can go and go ahead and get a tax anticipation warrant through our bonding council to get funds in.
From where?
Banks, whoever bids on that.
A tax warrant is basically a cash flow problem.
Right.
When it's not coming in. A general obligation bond is for improvements that will have its own independent tax rate to pay it back.
I just remember a few years back, some of those warrants were forgiven. Not to us, to some, not.
Those were different kinds of loans that were made to distressed school corporations.
This was non-public schools.
Yeah, that was also, that would have been, if that was from the state, whereas tax warrants really in Indiana are sold only two ways. One is to the public marketplace and the other is to the Indiana Bond Bank.
Okay.
And those are direct investments, and those have not been forgiven. What may have been is distressed school districts, there are three of them that all went belly out.
This, okay.
The $91 million that was forgiven for charter schools for startup, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that was the only thing those were forgiven for. 91 million. Yeah, you're thinking right, I know what you're talking about, yeah. No, we as public schools.
Yeah, we have to pay ours.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Now, don't ask me to talk about that for a second. Woo, no, that was a.
Don't get me started.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor of approval of the GO bond resolution 2022, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining. Okay, Mr. Jones, do you have any comments for this evening? Okay. Ms. Hutchinson?
I do not.
Mr. Ball? Mr. Freeman?
No, sir.
Mr. Patrick? Mr. President?
Just want to wish our dear superintendent a speedy recovery. Is he watching? I'm sure he is.
He said he was
We
one of
missed
two
you.
people.
He
He
was,
was one of two people. That's what he told me a little while ago.
that's 50% increase, 100% increase.
The
Yeah.
second's probably one of our tech people. Sure.
Probably.
It's where, works.
Well,
What's
we
he's
missed
like?
Dr. Harmon did a good job, but we missed him.
Okay. Dr. Harper?
I just echo Ms. Perkins' sentiments that, Mr. Lochner, we missed you and we hope you have a speedy recovery. Also, I'd like to just thank all of our teachers and staff and really our students and community for a successful end of the first quarter. It's hard to believe. It's gone by so quickly. And we wish everyone a very safe and fun fall break. Also, I'd like to congratulate our coaches again. As I listened to their words, it just gave me chills. And the impact that they have had on so many students across our district over the years is just incredible. And they are certainly unique individuals, and it's hard to find those type of people anymore that have dedicated their lives and their families' lives to support our students and their programs. And we look forward to, in the spring of 2023, we will have a nice sign on the box to commemorate Coach Hatfield, and we'll have patches in the turf in the fall of 2024 to honor the Bill Ware football field. So that'll be an exciting time
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those